welcome back. We are continuing our series where we're looking at all the things we need to know to get our Certified Associate in Python certification. And we've been moving our way slowly, but getting there. Worked our way through some operators, and now today we're going to start looking at input and output. Before I do, one of the things we're not really going to cover because it is just not very interesting to cover and there's usually only one or two questions at most on it. But I do want to point out, take a look at basically just, you can sort of Google accuracy of floating point numbers and probably, in Python. And you'll see some discussions of why particularly floating point numbers are not exact in like as they are stored in the computer, because there are some things that just are not. It is impossible to have, essentially, because there's, the short description is, if you think about it, there's essentially an infinite number of numbers between 0 and 1. You could have 0.1, 0.11, 0.1111, 0.1111, 21111, blah, 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 blah. So since there's an infinite number, you don't have an exact representation of each of those in the computer. It doesn't have an infinite amount of bit combinations, basically, to cover all of those. That means there's gaps. You find this in any programming language, anything in a computer, but it's good to know, just to know about it, to understand that the way that a computer lists something and the way it's going to display it is not necessarily identical. And this can cause problems when you get into very complicated math. If you've got very large numbers, particularly very small numbers, if you get into a lot of decimal, with a lot of decimal points and doing multiplication or adding a whole lot of numbers together, you'll find things don't quite work out. And so you can get rounding errors, basically. And short of that is do your best to stick to integers, but that's not always obviously possible. So be aware. And like I said, there'll probably be a question on a test, maybe not on all of them. So take a look at that accuracy of floating point numbers in Python. Now, we have talked about some of the output things already. We have already seen print a couple times, although we're going to go back to it. We have not yet talked about, but we will talk about input. And then with this, I believe we have looked at both string, whoops, if I spell that right, and maybe int, and maybe float. I can't remember if we've looked at each of those or not, but we're going to talk about those. And then particularly with the print, I want to talk about the end and the separator. I'm going to look at those. And I'm going to have some notes on these as well. So, some additional links for doing some more research on them. So the basic is, first we have print. And so this will be, this is a simple string output. Easy enough. If we do this, then we see that string shows up. Now we can also do, let's do this, x equals. Now, one that we haven't looked at yet is this, which is similar, but I want to mention it. Oh, sorry. Actually, I think we have to do a print of that to get it out. There we go. And so you can see that you've got x is a value, but if you want the more information about it, this particularly as we get into like classes and stuff like that, if you force the representation, the REPR, then you're going to get it with quotes. Not a major thing, but just one of those neat little things in there. Now, input is, so we're going to do y equals input, enter a value, print y, and let's see what happens. Because this is the most likely thing to see. So enter value, QWERTY, boom, QWERTY. So input's not terribly complex, sort of what you would expect. With input, what you're going to end up doing is you give it a string that is going to be your prompt, like you see here. And then you could put like I could put a, if I do a line feed, then do it there. Notice now I'm entering on the other, and depending on what I have, I don't necessarily have all of my key mappings. So then it prints it back out. By default, it's going to be on the same line, and you could also do it. Let me just do this real quick, which is very complicated. I can do it without, and so now it's just waiting for something, and there you go. So you really probably don't want to do that. So if I do enter a value, and here I'm going to do you entered, and I can do this. I believe that's the format. Let's find out in a second. Yeah, that's not the exact format because, and let me flip back over to that. That's not what I want. I think this is what I want. So I always forget that little guy when we're talking about it. Oh, it's .format. That's what it is. Okay. So I can do this, and it's going to be .format. I think it has to be, let's see, so if I just do that, I should be okay. What closes? Let's see. There we go. So that closes that. Oh, let me get back to this guy. There we go. Oh, wait. And here we go. So you enter QWERTY. Now I could also do it like this. And see, enter a second value. Let's do another value. And then you entered that and that. So now I can do red, enter another one, blue. So I entered red and blue, but I can also swap these. I can put an order to this. Red, blue. And see, now it says blue and red. So I can actually, based on, this is 0 indexed into the parameters that are part of the format. So I can actually get moderately complicated pretty quick if I wanted to do that. And so that's one of the ways that we can do our print. Another we can do is, let's do A equals, let me just, I'm going to steal an example, and this link will be there. So let's do it like this. Let's do A equals that. And if I do print A, let's just start with this. And then let's actually do, we'll play around with this a little bit. Whoop. Oh, A, B, there we go. And so the representation is the same as it's going to get. So you're sending this array out. But now one of the things I can add is, let me get rid of this. Now I can do, comma, let's do separator equals, and let's do a star. A, B, I need to get rid of those inputs. Oh. And let's go here. So if I print them out at just a list, so this was before, this is an array, but now this is just an actual list of items. So I can print any number of items if I want to. And they can be all kinds of stuff, so I can mix it up. I can make this red, I can make this a car, and I can make this 3.4. So if I do that, I'll leave those there for now. So if I do A, B, then we're going to see that it has each of those in there, and it separates them by default with a space. But what I can also do is I can come in and I can do a separator equals, and then let's make the separator a pipe. Which these are the kinds of things you may actually find rather valuable when you're dealing with output and stuff like that. So now I have a nice little pipe separator on each one of those. If I also wanted to do something at the end, equals, let's just do EOL, and we'll just do it this way. We'll do it like this. Now, if I do it, we can see here that I get the pipe separators, and then I get the EOL. Now notice that it does not, I don't have at the end of this thing a line feed. So I could take here, let's see, how do I want it? Well, I could do end of line. Let me do it this way, because I think if I do it like this, let's see what that does, because that may give me what I need. Yeah, there we go. So now that EOL, you don't see the printed end of line. But note that that's only going to be there because I forced that in there. So I can add separators to a comma separate to a list of comma separated values within the print. And it's not CSV text, it's actually just a list of values. And I can add separators and I can do ends to that. Let's see what else we got. So we've got here, so let's do A equals 1, B equals 2.5, and C equals, let's do this, because that's a string, and let's say C equals 2.5. So now, if I try to get to the end and print A plus 1, we've run into this one before, because if I go in and do that, I can't, that's that second part can only concatenate string, not integer, to a string. So here, what I would need to do is convert that, and watch if I do that, it's going to say, okay, it's, oh shoot, I need to get my, let me print. Let me just do this. Let me get a couple of lines here just to get that so we can see it a little better. There we go. Okay, so we come in and now it's printing 1 plus 1 equals 2 because I'm converting them. Now if I do the same thing and I try to do, now if I do B, if I do int B plus 1, then note, now I'm getting an invalid or literal because that's not an int. It's not going to convert this 2.5 to an int. So in this case, I need to do a float. And if I do that, now we have it. Now note, in this case, it's going to just, because it's a 1, it automatically is going to convert that over. If I did that plus A, then note that I'm back to the problem with a float and a string. So I would have to do float A to get that. So now, there we go, so 3.5. So I've got my ints and my floats, and of course, the other thing I can do if I want to be really weird is I can do, let me convert both of those to a string. And so now we're going to take 2.5 as a string plus 1.0. And let's see how this one blows up for us. Notice it's 2.5, and then it concatenates 1.0, because remember that the plus does a concatenation of strings. So that gives us our prints, our inputs, and casting. It's both our ints, our strings, and our floats. So it's a basic input and output. There's some other stuff we're going to deal with as far as writing to files, but this should give us our first one. And of course, importantly, because we use this a lot actually, is the format. And so that's just, remember that I can say, so I could do greeting equals hello, blah, blah, blah. Hope you realize it is blah out. And I need to spell that right. And then I can do print. And let's see, let me do name equals Bob. weather equals sunny. And now I can take the greeting, dot format, and then I'm just going to give it a list of parameters. Now remember, these could be, I could make this 0 and 1 just to be specific, or I can just assume it's all going to fall into place. So if I'm going to do that, then 1 is going to be name, and the second one is going to be weather. Now I can also do, let's do parms equals name comma weather, and I think this is going to work for me as well. Did I call it parm? I did. So now do our little inputs, and it is out of range. So we did do hello Bob, but that second one, it did not take that because it's a tuple. I'm sorry. I think it's this way maybe. Let me make sure I get this right. No, okay. So it's taking it, because unfortunately it is taking it as a, it takes that as a single variable. So the format, it's trying to format this instead of converting it in. There's another way to do that, but I forget how, so I'm not going to mess with it because this is cleaner anyways. So in doing so, we can add all kinds of formatting and have like template strings and things of that nature that will help us out quite a bit. I think that's a good point to wrap it up for this one. And I guess next time we're probably going to, we're going to move on from this. So the next thing we're going to actually probably tackle is going to be some conditional statements. So we'll start doing some ifs and elses and stuff. And we'll start playing around a little bit with creating some little, scriptlet type applications as we're starting to now have a couple of things in place that we can use to make something interesting. As always, this is updated. This will be updated in the GitHub repository. You can take a look at the examples there, play around with it. Don't forget to take a look at the limitations and issues that exist in floating point numbers in Python, the accuracy of those numbers. And as always, go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time.